Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar talking interoperability of the Decent Convergence Initiative. We're just letting time to people to set in, and we will start very soon. A warm welcome to everyone. Just a few minutes, and we will start. Yes, so I think we're probably ready with a good number of participants. So again, a very warm welcome to this webinar, talking interoperability of the Decent Convergence Initiative. We are now ready to set. Yeah. So first, a few housekeeping reminders for all of us to make this seminar smooth and to also make sure that we get all your questions. So you have a Q&A box in the chat where you can leave, you have a Q&A box where you can leave your question, but you can also share any comments or resources in the chat. But importantly also, we have interpretation available in French, Spanish, and Portuguese, in addition to English. So you know you can click on the little globe that you have at the bottom of your screen, and you can start with the interpretation in the language of your choice. And finally, the last rule, this session will be recorded to make sure that we can re-listen to it, and more participants can also join later. So those were in terms of housekeeping rule, and next about the agenda. This webinar will follow a similar structure to the other webinar, where we will be very delighted to have presentation from a study that has been conducted to collect some country experiences, but also we will have a presentation from South Korea, directly from South Korea, and we will have 3 discussants to this to respond and share additional information about those presentations. And here with me today for the panelists and the discussants, thank you. So we have our presenter to the study, Mrs. Martina Bergthaller. She's a social policy expert who has more than 50 years working on social policy, specifically on the link between social protection and employment. And she's here today to present the preliminary result of a study she's conducted. And we have to talk to us about the experience of South Korea. We are delighted to have with us Dr. SangHyon Lee, a researcher fellow from the Korea Employment Information Service, who has concrete experience in the topic that we're presenting today. And to respond and to add more information and reflection about the topic of today on this interoperability between social protection and employment services, we will have as discussant Thomas Byrne, an expert on digital initiative from the Market Impact, as well as Aline Dikmelik, a senior economist of the social protection and jobs global practice at the World Bank, and also my colleague Marcelo Segovia, project manager on employment services and active labor market policies at the ILO. So this is for the presentation of all our speakers today. And I'm really happy to be in such good company. Few words about the Digital Convergence Initiative. So this Talking Interoperability webinar, as I said, is part of this global initiative that is supported by many very valuable partners, the European Union and the German government, but also together implemented by GIZ, the World Bank, Expertise France, FIAP, and the International Labour Organization. If I may summarize what is the DCI in 4 steps. Next slide, please. Thank you. So first, the DCI, Digital Convergence Initiatives, aims at producing and sharing knowledge, and this webinar is also part of this knowledge sharing, but also aims, based on this knowledge and learning from different experiences, to develop some global technical standards for interoperability. And the purpose of this initiative is also to support the implementation of these standards and the knowledge that we are gathering at the country level, together with capacity development and training, to continue learning together on how we can improve this interoperability and also how we can continue improving the standards that we are developing. Next. So, as I said, one of the big objectives of DCI is to share knowledge. And in today's world, to share knowledge also comes through webinars, Talking Interoperability webinars, which is a dialogue series to facilitate the diving into technical conversation. And we had a number of important webinars already taking place, and notably webinar learning from countries like Chile, like India, and other countries, and data exchange and for interoperability. And also last June, on the 3rd of June, we had a very interesting webinar on advancing the integration of social assistance and labor market programs. And all this discussion have led us today to these topics, which is linking social protection and public employment services through system interoperability. Next. The DCI, as I said, also aims at developing standards in 3 different areas: for process, for data exchange, and also for API standards, application programming, interexchange of standards. Yeah, and this the work is conducted by the DCI group of partners to help developing the standards that have appeared very important to ensure a minimum harmonization when we talk about interoperability of information and data across the different institutions. And here we're also working with JIT books and the JIT Hub that I really encourage you to visit to continue learning more about what it means to develop a standard for interoperability, and with some concrete experiences. Next. The standards, a number of them are already been developed and are being implemented, for example, on the farmer registry, disability registry, and also the integrated beneficiary registry, social registry, and the civil registration and vital statistic. On this system exist already in your countries. And through these standards, these global technical standards, it also helps improving the exchange of data across the different type of registry and database that exist in the countries. Few more of these standards will come on the payment system, on the employment system, the early warning system, and as well under discussion on the ID system. So as you see, when we talk about interoperability of data and information, we really cover a number of social and public services that each has its own set of data, and it's important to continue exchanging for improving the efficiency and effectiveness of the system. Next, and this is where we are coming today on this specific topic, among all the lists that we have presented, of how we can also better link social protection programs with public employment services. And why is it so important to ensure this coordination between social protection program and public employment services? And why this zooming on public employment services is because not only a better coordination and exchange of data will improve efficiency, as I say, effectiveness of the services, both for the beneficiaries, but also, as we will see in the examples, others can benefit, such as enterprises, from this better integration and exchange of data. But foremost, the importance of coordinating better social protection and employment services also comes with a greater outcome in terms of facilitating access to decent and formal jobs, and also greatly supporting reduction of poverty and vulnerability. And we know, and you have learned already in the past interoperability webinars, that digital technology and data exchange can actually act as a great accelerator of this coordination among the different public services. And thanks to Martina's study and Dr. SangHyon Lee's experience from South Korea, we will learn today from concrete experiences of this implementation of the link and the interoperability between social protection programs and employment services. So with no further ado, I'm very pleased to give you the floor, Martina, to tell us what you have learned by doing this review across different countries on this specific link between social protection and public employment services. Thank you very much, Martina.
Okay, thank you, Celine. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining this webinar. As mentioned by Celine, I'm an independent consultant, and I'm currently working on a background study on linking social protection and public employment services through systems interoperability. This study has been commissioned by the ILO under the umbrella of the Digital Convergence Initiative. And it aims to underpin the standards that are currently being developed or that will be developed for linking social protection and employment information systems, as we have seen in one of the previous slides. So the findings of this research will hopefully serve policymakers and practitioners of social protection schemes, as well as public employment services that seek to improve this coherence and streamlining between the two areas and its underlying information systems, as well as digital experts and technology solutions providers to guide them how to set up interoperability and how to improve the functionality of each system to be able to interoperate. Today, I will present the initial findings based on an analysis of various country cases, in particular Chile, Turkey, and Korea, that will also be featured as specific case studies in the overall study. So what you see here now is the outline of my presentation, and I already have to confess now that I was very ambitious and prepared a lot of slides, and I will not be able to go into detail for each of these slides. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to shortly introduce or dig deeper into the objective of the study first. Then, you can go back to the past slide. So I'm still with the outline. Yeah. So then I'm going to zoom a little bit more into public employment services and the range of services that are being provided, because I'm assuming that most of the audience here today will be from the social protection sector. So it might be interesting to learn a little bit more about public employment services. Then after that, I give an overview of digital information systems of both areas and the key data points that are covered there, again, with a focus on public employment services. And I will talk about the potential benefits of interoperability between social protection and public employment service information systems. After that, I will give some practical examples of collaboration opportunities and underlying use cases for systems interoperability. And last but not least, I would flag a few key considerations that should be taken into account when designing and implementing such interoperable systems. We can move now to the next slide. I'm going to skip the background, but I would like to go into the objectives of the study at the bottom of the slide. So the objectives of the study are basically twofold. First, and as a basis, I'm going to examine the drivers and options for stronger collaboration in general between social protection administrations and public employment services. And I'm going to highlight the added value for the institutions as well as the beneficiaries. And I'm going to outline some general collaboration opportunities. And based on this, the study is going to explore the role of digital technologies and data exchange in supporting and reinforcing these collaborations. We can go to the next slide, please. So I'm not going to go deep into that. So I just wanted to show you that this collaboration between social protection and public employment services is also anchored and guided by several ILO conventions and recommendations that are outlined here. You can have a look at that afterwards and can read into it. It's just a reminder that this is also already anchored. We can go to the next slide, please. And now, as I said, I would dig a little bit further into public employment services and the range of services that they are usually providing. I will not go into an intro of social protection because, as I said, I'm assuming that most of the audience here is more from the social protection community. So basically, to give a global picture, a recent ILO survey found out that there are around 90 to 100 countries that have public employment services in place, but their structure, their capacities, and their range of services vary widely. So what you see here on this slide is the typical range of services and benefits that are being provided. And in the middle, you see, let's say, the core services that are often provided by public employment services. This includes career counseling and guidance and also job search support. And then public employment services are often also in a role to provide or refer to other active labor market programs, which are outlined on the left side of this slide. So this can include training, it could include wage subsidies, entrepreneurship promotion, support to self-employment or public employment programs. And in some instances, public employment services are also administering and providing or referring to specific social protection benefits that are mostly tailored to unemployed or underemployed persons. This could include unemployment insurance, unemployment assistance, job search allowance or early retirement provisions, or any other forms of cash assistance. And this is basically already a direct link to social protection, or the direct link between social protection and public employment services, which we are seeing in a lot of high and also higher middle income countries already. It is important to say here that in many, especially low income and lower middle income countries, public employment services are either still fully absent or not well developed, or they are only providing a limited range of services. So that's just an overview. It doesn't say that in each country you find this full range of services. We can move to the next slide, please. So here I'm also not going into detail. I think in various webinars, we already had some presentations of the social protection delivery chain. There are also some publications outlining this. This is just to say that also in public employment services, you could outline a delivery chain, or the services are typically following kind of a delivery chain that are going from outreach to registration, to the assessment of needs and conditions, and then to the provision of services and provision of benefits where they are available, and then to intermediation. So with the ultimate goal to connect job seekers with decent work and employers with suitable candidates. So these steps are also closely aligned. So there are some, let's say, back and forth between assessment and provision of services and so on. So it's just to, let's say, give an understanding of how this works in the public employment services area. We can move to the next slide, please. Here, I'm not going to go into too much detail. This slide is outlining the benefits of collaboration of social protection and public employment services from different user groups, so from job seekers or social protection beneficiaries perspective, from an employer's perspective, and from a government perspective. But as we are talking about digital interoperability here in this webinar, I would like to go directly to the next slide. You can have a look at this afterwards. And I would like to start with, let's say, an overview of the information or underlying information systems that are supporting these two areas, social protection and public employment services. I'm starting with social protection. And again, I would say that this has been discussed a lot over the past webinars already. So I'm, again, not going too much into detail here. It's just this slide is, kind of a reminder which social protection information systems or which elements of social protection information systems can be there, that there are social registries, that there are integrated beneficiary registries, program management information systems, in some cases also case management information systems or program inventories. And these tools contain a lot of valuable data that could be exchanged to improve the coordination and service delivery between social protection and public employment services. We can go to the next slide, and the next slide will outline or give an overview of the public employment services information systems in general. And here I'm going to go a little bit more into detail. So from, let's say, my research so far, and also from the literature research that I have seen, that in contrast to social protection, where we have information systems already well documented and increasingly systematized and also covered by a broad set of literature developed by various development partners over the last years, I haven't seen something like that for public employment services. So it seems that there is still a lack of standardized frameworks across countries. And what you see here is basically based on an analysis of literature and country practices. And what I have discovered is that there are basically, I would say around 5 types of different information systems. One is a job seeker registration system that stores personal and professional data, sometimes also with profiling tools attached to identify the needs and also identify those groups that need extra support. Then a second one is a public vacancy database. These are platforms where employers post vacancies that can also help to track labor shortages and direct job seekers to open jobs. A third one, and that's basically interlinking the first and the second one, is our job matching systems that connect job seekers and employers by aligning skills and vacancies. And this is more and more also supported by artificial intelligence and other advanced tools to facilitate this matching. What we can also see in many countries is kind of a labor market information systems that provides aggregated labor market data to inform policymaking and also planning of public employment services. And what you do not see here, but what you also might find in some countries, are program inventories that are storing information on active labor market programs provided by public employment services, or even some certain program management information of specific active labor market policies. The terminologies and the system designs varies across country contexts. So it's just this first attempt to systematize this, I would say. And not all countries have all these systems in place. In some cases, each function is in a separate system, while other countries, as we are going to learn also from the case of Korea today, are integrating various functions into one single unified platform. We can move to the next slide. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about why interoperability between the two systems makes sense. So what is the usefulness of sharing data between the two policy areas? The usefulness of PS data, public employment service data, for social protection administrations is generally to support beneficiaries in labor market integration or reintegration, to monitor compliance with work-related conditions, to adjust benefits based on employment outcomes, and more broadly also to support transitions from social assistance to social insurance and decent employment. The usefulness of social protection data for public employment services it can facilitate better coordination of active labor market policies with social protection policies that sometimes are also called passive labor market policies, to also, let's say, improve the activation effort, so to make people participate in the labor market and search for employment. It can improve outreach to population groups that are further away from the labor market, that are often covered by social assistance schemes. And it can also help to tailor services to specifically vulnerable groups that are also sometimes covered by the registries of social protection systems, like persons with disabilities, the rural population, poor and vulnerable women, and so on. Then we can move to the next slide, please. So the usefulness for both PES and social protection administration, so more from, let's say, a broader governance perspective, is that this data exchange can enhance coherence of approaches and instruments between the two sectors. It can support strategic program sequencing and layering across these two sectors. And it can reduce data collection costs and burdens when digging into, let's say, the data of the other system. It can also improve overall data accuracy and help improve cross-sectoral monitoring and evaluation. So now we can move to the next slide. And now I'm going to give you a short overview of potential collaboration opportunities that I developed based on the analysis of a range of country cases. And basically, we can distinguish between social protection initiated collaboration. These are collaborations where social protection administrations are requesting data or referring beneficiaries to public employment services to support their specific social protection objectives. And then we have a second category on the right-hand side, which are public employment service initiated collaborations. And these are cases where public employment services are requesting data from social protection administrations or referring their clients directly to them to support the, let's say, PES specific objectives. So in general, we have around 8 collaboration opportunities with underlying use cases that will be featured in the overall study. I won't have time to go into all of them today, so I just picked out 2 examples that I'm going to explore further in the next slides. And maybe you can move back once more. Just to one point that I still wanted to make here is that some of these use cases that you see here are also very much interconnected. For example, in many countries that are supporting social protection beneficiaries to find employment, you will also find some, let's say, tools to monitor compliance with activation measures and to verify the employment status in collaboration with labor administrations, for example. So even though they are presented here and also in the study as separate use cases, you can find a lot of, let's say, interconnections also between these collaboration opportunities and the underlying use cases. So now we can move to the next slide, please. So for each of the 2 categories, I picked out one example. So for social protection initiated collaboration, I picked out the example, the first one, of supporting social protection beneficiaries to find employment, because this is also something that we are increasingly seeing in low and middle income countries. So basically, the rationale here is that working age social assistance recipients or those receiving unemployment benefits can be supported in accessing employment opportunities through closer cooperation between program administrations of these schemes and public employment services where they are available and functional. This cooperation can basically take various forms. So the easiest or the most simple form is to have referrals of social assistance beneficiaries to public employment services or underlying active labor market programs. But this can also go further. So it could be via automated notifications or eligibility checks within digital systems. It could be automatic registration of beneficiaries that are able to work with public employment services. And in some countries, we even see integrated case management between public employment services and social protection administrations. The degree or the need for data exchange is very much dependent on, let's say, the approach taken. In cases for referrals, it might be sufficient to have some basic access to data of the other systems, but for example, automatic registration or even integrated case management demand more advanced and seamless data sharing approaches. I would like to give one country example, which is Turkey, and this has been discussed already in one of the previous webinars in June. So if you are more interested in that, you can also listen to the recording there. And in Turkey, employable social assistance beneficiaries are reported to the Turkish Employment Agency called İSKUR by making use of the so-called integrated social assistance system, the ISAF. There are some incentives for beneficiaries. So if social assistance recipients attend a job interview and can secure a job, they receive a job referral assistance. But there are also some pull factors. So if individuals who refuse to participate in the public employment services, they are offered a job which they are continuously by ISKUR, and they are continuously rejecting it. They are discontinued from social assistance schemes after this situation has been reported from ISKUR to ISAF via direct interoperability. In the graph at the bottom of this slide, you can see which data are usually, let's say, pushed and pulled from the various systems. You can also have a look at this afterwards, and this is also going to be featured for all the use cases in the study then afterwards. So now we can move to the next slide. And I would like to give another example of KEIS initiated collaboration, which is employment subsidies for social protection beneficiaries or for specifically vulnerable populations that are often covered and, let's say, are shown in the social registry. Employment subsidies are a common labor market policy instrument that are sometimes or more and more managed by public employment services in various countries. And they are used to encourage or to incentivize firms to hire disadvantaged job seekers and also to incentivize beneficiaries of social assistance and unemployment insurance to enter the formal labor market. There are various approaches that can be taken. In some countries, quotas are applied that require that a share of the subsidy recipients come from specific social assistance programs. This is, for example, the case in Jordan, where the National Employment Program has a quota for beneficiaries of the National Aid Fund, the National Social Assistance Program. And in other countries, subsidies are directly provided to vulnerable individuals that are taking up formal jobs to incentivize them to enter the formal labor market. This is the case in Chile. So in Chile, there is the public employment service that provides 2 unemployment subsidies to specifically vulnerable populations. And applicants must belong to a household classified as socioeconomically vulnerable according to the Registro Social de Hogares, the National Social Registry. And to verify eligibility, Sense pulls the relevant data directly from the social registry in real time at the time of application through APIs. Okay, so then we can move to the last slide, and I would like to conclude my presentation with some key considerations and based on initial findings. So first of all, the opportunities for collaboration and the corresponding use cases for interoperability differ very much based on the country context and are very much influenced by the socioeconomic situation and political priorities, the social protection landscape, the, let's say, range of schemes, contributory and non-contributory, that are available, and then also by the availability and maturity of the public employment services. When it comes to maturity of public employment services, this is a key success factor, but it is often very limited in low and middle income countries. Often they lack clear mandates and legal institutional frameworks. They lack human capacity and staffing to deliver the services, and also the range of services is often very much limited and not tailored to specifically vulnerable groups. And then, as this is about digital interoperability, of course, it is also important that there is some degree of maturity of the digital information systems to enable this interoperability. But it's also important to mention that interoperability of these digital information systems is a means and not an end in itself. So it has to support broader national sectoral policy goals that have to be, let's say, carefully thought about. And it has to be aligned with a clear governance framework, with legal and operational frameworks to make it work. And last but not least, that's my last point here, is the level of collaboration also needs to be carefully tailored. So, and let's say in a line of continuum, we could talk about coordination if some data are exchanged on a regular basis. We could talk about cooperation if, let's say, there is a clear common objective between social protection and public employment services. And then we even find country cases like the one that we are going to hear afterwards, Korea, where the systems are fully integrated, or benefit services and digital systems are certainly integrated to a certain extent. However, integration is not necessarily the better option for each country. So what you can see in some cases is that there is a tendency or risk that countries are rushing into full integration of these two areas and of its approaches, and also the underlying information system before really setting the basics right. So to also say that social protection needs to have full functionality, the public employment services need to have a certain degree of maturity before starting to interconnect or even integrate these systems. So these are, let's say, first key considerations that are going to be further elaborated in the study that is going to be finished in a few months, I would say, and then hopefully also available. And with that, I would like to close my presentation. I'm very much looking forward to learn about Korea, and I'm handing back to Celine. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Martina. And we're really looking forward now to receiving the study and learning more. And thanks for reminding us to set the scene for the discussion of the list of services from public employment services, social protection. And also one of your key messages that this interoperability of data systems should not be a goal in itself, but we should really look also at what objective we are pursuing by improving the coordination between social protection and employment services. And without opening the floor yet for questions, thanks a lot for holding your question. I think in the continuity of the two examples from Turkey and Chile, if Dr. Xiang Li, you would like to also tell us about South Korea as a very concrete example, and then we can have a discussion also with first our discussant and among all the participants. And I see more and more participants continue joining, which is really great, and will promise a good discussion after the presentation. So Dr. Lee, the floor is you if you want to tell us more about South Korea. All our ears are open. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Next. I'll start my presentation about the basic information about Korea. Korea now is famous with K-pop Demon Hunters. I hope you haven't been watching this newly published new movie. Korea is a very small country. If you don't know where we are in between China and Japan, size of Guatemala and Portugal. So pretty small size, but highly populated with 51 million people living. Our employment rate is 63.3. About 29 million employees are working. And this is a very shocking figure. Unemployment rate is 2.0. For me, it is also very shocking. It's the lowest in the Korean history today, unemployment rate. So our economists also looking at this figure in a very curious view. How come we have such a low unemployment rate? It's another issue we need to figure that out. So we are in shortage of people, so we introduce a lot of migrant workers. Using migrant workers is a key labor market policies today in Korea. Our combined birth rate is also extreme low, one of the lowest in the world, 0.72. But most of the countries are heading for this low combined rate. So we are kind of the most ahead in the global trend in combined rate in terms of all the population changes. So that we are quickly super aging society. Our GDP per capita is around the $36,000. So I want to have some small pictures about the Korean labor economy. Next. This picture shows that overall, very simplified, social protection systems in Korea. Okay, we have a three coverage system. At the most base, there are social assistant runs by Ministry of Welfare and Health. We call basic livelihood security program. It implemented in 2000. There are now around 2.6 million benefit recipients in 2024. It also includes disability pension, child support benefit, basic pension for elderly is all belong to Ministry of Welfare and Health. And then Ministry of Employment and Labor also some sort of social protection program. As you well know, unemployment insurance is one of the typical program for social uh, protection who lost their job. So Korean's unemployment insurance program was introduced year 1995, and today there were 15 million people are insured, and last year alone 1.8 million benefit recipients. To consider very low, extreme low unemployment rate, 2.0, so the benefit represent is relatively smaller than OECD country. And then we expand this unemployment insurance program more and more to expand our coverage and to minimize blind spot in social protection. One of the examples is self-employed unemployment insurance was introduced year 2006, but they are not meant, it's a voluntary insured program so that only 53,000 people are insured. And then we expand again with the COVID-19. More and more countries try to consider there needs some more social protection program to challenge with unemployment issues. Korea was not the exception, so we started non-standard workers unemployment insurance coverage in 2021, such as artists and platform workers covered. Around 1,800,000 people are covered today. And then we also expand unemployment assistance, which who were not covered by unemployment insurance, who didn't pay any premium, but should be that we figured it out. There's a big gap between social assistance and unemployment insurance that we created this program year 2021. There were every year around 350,000 people beneficiary for this program. And then we call this unemployment assistance program as National Employment Service Program. And then there are two different ministries involved in most of the social protection program. The Ministry of Employment and Labor has under agency called KEIS, which I came from, Korea Employment Information Service, providing IT services and research for these two programs, unemployment insurance, unemployment assistance, and active labor market policies. This program is conducted at the job center, and the KEIS is the agency who provide the service for the IT wise. In Korea, almost every ministry has their own information system agencies. Information is very important to running the government, running the company, running whole society, so that each minister is starting specialized agency who cover up this IT technology. So the under the Ministry of Welfare and Health also has an agency called Korea Social Security Information Services. And then each of these agencies provide already interoperate of all kinds of services related with social assistance. There are about 300 different services under the social assistance program. So all these 300 programs is related and interoperated in its one system called Social Welfare Management Information System developed by Social Security Information Services. And then this UI and UA wise, Korea Employment Information Services provide, there are around 100 different services running at the job centers with interoperately with the UI and UA. And these all services also connected and developed and managed by Korea Employment Information Services. So this is a whole picture. I hope you could understand what's going on in big pictures in the social protection system in Korea. Next. I mentioned National Employment Service Program. This is very important, but I wanted to explain with this why interoperation is important in the social protection program, also public employment service program. NESP is unemployment assistance program, but if you look at the service title, we call it unemployment assistance. When you think about unemployment assistance, it's like more likely focused on monetary assistance. However, when we design Korean style or Korean context unemployment assistance program, we more focused on employment services combined as a benefit. So it's already public employment services combined with social protection program in one services. Okay, so the step of NESP service process start from application. Then this is a assistant program, so it should be should go through the min test. So to take the min test automatically, we need to check with the data with the social assistance and credit unions and taxation, even medical insurance coverage. Through checking with the data system, we quickly figured out this person is eligible for NESP program. To do that, we need already connected many different organizations, many different ministries information system. And then if it is the person is eligible, then we first make a individual action plan. This NESP program is individual case management based program, so the one-on-one counselor provide employment services throughout the year. It takes almost 1 year program, and then they helping them make a job searching activities based on the IAP and employment services. And then each of the month, we give $630 for activating for the assistant. And then to giving these $630, you need also with connected with the banking system, right? So banks is also connected. And then we have like work job experience program. They could try for 1 month, or they could have internship through up to 3 months, and then they could have also vocational training. So we need to connect with the job searching program, also vocational training program. In this one program, unemployment assistance is already interconnected with many different programs. Next. That was the example. And 20 years ago, a KEIS under the Ministry of Employment side of the Public Employment Service side, Job Center, we tried to put the data together. Okay, Job Center provide employment insurance and the job placement services, vocation training. Already we explained. Also on the top of the migrant worker services. So we have 4 different major systems run by Job Center, developed by and Korea Employment Information Services. We strongly felt these 4 data should be connected because we should provide better services for these people, also provide more proactive services. Okay, someone who register for to searching for the job, but the automatically with the HLD record comes out when he talk with this person about the job. The career counselor at the job center look up his historical record of his skill development basis, also his historical record with unemployment insurance. Using these data, the person at the job center could provide much profile, much performance oriented, result oriented services by combining this data. We realized that. So 20 years ago, we tried to connect these 4 major data under our case developing under the job center. And then we also family sister organization under the Ministry of, of Labor, such as HLD Korea, or some of the organization outside of Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Welfare, and Chamber of Commerce, and Industrial Relations System, or education system. If we combine those systems, then we could have better results. So that we start, put all these data connected as one. Next. And then year 2014, there was a big revolution in Korea employment services. Before it was a job center. However, year 2024, we realized there for the employment, the hardest people, the people far away from the labor market, we need to solve their multi barriers to get into the labor market. So if you're not solving the person's, most of the people who have long-term unemployment have to have like credit issues, right? Bankrupt. And then they are dependent on social welfare like that, and they have health issues. So, and or housing issues, homeless. So we need to realize to be successful in the labor market, we must connect it with these people at one big combined services, so that we figure out this new form of services, put social assistant, social unemployment assistant, UI, and active labor market policy, and plus, just as a credit and healthcare should be co-located and collaborated at the job center, working together. Then we can more better result could come from this collaboration. So that we have created this system, and then we call employment welfare plus, because we put at the job center welfare working together, not only the welfare but also microcredit and healthcare and then any other community service could come, invite. So that we call plus. So at the job center, we have 102 job center, 5,200 staffs are working. Another employment job center, original job center, right there. There was job matching team, unemployment benefit team, NESP team, skill development team, employer support team, like that. That's the core job center. And IT system wise, there are to support this job center, we have WorkNet, job placement network, and EI system, employment insurance system, HRNet for vocational training, like that. And then we put the plus center. We invited the municipal social welfare services into the job center, and then healthcare microcredit credit to function working together. We need also IT system working together. So we create a work plus system. So these different IT systems from the municipality, microcredit, healthcare, come into our system connected and interoperably working together. I monitored this in the early situation, year 2014. The successful point or how it runs. I monitored this new concept of employment welfare plus center, and I interview with a lot of social welfare officers from ward offices from municipal government, and then I realized two very important things was like that. One of the social welfare specialists who provide the most recommendation to the job center, one of what the person recommended like 3,000 person recommended from social welfare program to job center, and I interviewed her, and what was the behind you recommend such many people to link to the job center, and she said, actually social welfare. She worked there for around more than 10 years. It's just uh, making a decision whether you're giving the benefit or not. Okay, there's nothing they could do except just they decide I'll give the money to you. But some other services to raise the person up is all in job centers to increase their dignity and to come true their real dream, to be like more increase their humanity, their ideal life. Is all services are located in the job center. That's why she provide all this benefit recipient to the job centers. And then another thing I was shocked is the most of the social welfare specialists talk that before I come into the job center, I never knew what other services are provided at the job center. So social protection, we are doing unemployment insurance, unemployment assistance in the Ministry of Labor, and the social assistance in the welfare, but they never talk. That was another point that I found. And interoperated, the meaning of interoperated we need to do is right there. That's the real purpose, to provide the real services to raise these peoples up. Is core reason that, in my opinion, we need the integrated data. Next.
Dr. Lee, if I may
Yeah.
interrupt, sorry, Dr. Lee, if I may interrupt, I'm also
Yeah.
looking at the time, and we have an interesting question raised by your presentation. So if we can wrap up into 3 minutes, and then we will have more time to continue sharing.
I was about to.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, and I have something to discuss more, but I'll do it later on. Employment 24, and then we put these services at the job center into one system. It's not data connection. We put all this system in one server now. So we unified one huge supercomputer instead of 3 different silos. And then we call employment 24. That's another advancement. Next. And then next. And then there are 700 today on the employment 24, 726 data connection with all these, almost every ministry and almost every agencies are connected. So what I'm trying to say is today, so many data are interoperated from so many organizations. Okay, next. And then future of Korea data sharing system not only put together social protection and employment service, we make public administration data sharing system. All government data should be shared and connected together in one big server. Okay, all government data, whatever it is, and then from the users like job center or social welfare center freely legalize and then take the information they need. By doing this, we can provide more proactive services. All government service provide will be one huge system interoperated in this trading system called public administration data sharing system. It's gonna be a future because we started this year. There are only 5 pilot programs are operating, sharing the data right now. But this is a clear direction to the future. Sooner or later, all of the government, all of the public agencies, or related agencies with our services change the data from this system. Thank you very much. I finished my presentation. Right here.
No, thank you very much, Dr. Lee, and apologies again for rushing you through the last slide that has a lot of information. Really, really interesting experience from South Korea. Very interesting to hear that you also continuously assess the services, the system, to make sure that you reach out on the most difficult to engage in these services and program, and also exchanging data with more and more institutions. I was rushing you because we have questions, so we're going to open after the 3 discussants for the question and answer session. And I would like to invite our 3 discussants, to come and share your reaction. If you can also be short, so we have more interaction with the rest of participants. So I would like first perhaps to invite you, maybe Miss Aline, if you would like to come and share your first reaction to this discussion. We will be very pleased to hear also what you have taken as key messages and what you would like to add to this discussion, your reflection. Thank you very much, Aline. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine. I hope you can hear me, and thank you, Martina, and thank you, Dr. Lee, for excellent presentations. I have to say, as a labor economist by training who works on both social assistance, social protection systems, and labor market programs, systems, of course, including public employment services, and particularly how to connect them. This topic is really, really dear to my heart. And I really like the increasing focus on the linkages and integration of these systems. And really excited, I have to say, how the rapidly advancing technology, IT, and especially the systems interoperability can make this a reality for many countries and allows them to leapfrog. So I think, maybe a couple reactions very quickly. One, I really like how Martina outlined the benefits. Just wanted to make one comment there. One of the cross-cutting benefits that didn't come out as clearly is the client-centered design and service delivery. That is at the heart of this integration, because that puts the citizens at the heart of the service delivery. Of course, has administrative efficiency and coherence of benefits for the government, but then it sort of limits how the citizens need to go figure out where to go, which services are available, which services are applicable, where to apply differently, and etc. And that actually puts the most vulnerable at a disadvantage. So this integration, this linkages are critical to move towards a more client designed or centered design and delivery. The second point is, I think the level of linkages, Martina captured it a little bit, and we've seen it in the Korea case. It's very fully integrated, and in other cases, not so much. But the level of linkage is different in countries. In my experience, it depends very much on the institutional structure and policy goals. For instance, in most European countries, including not the high income ones, but the middle income ones like the Balkans, registering at PES is a condition for receiving the social assistance. But then what happens is there are no customized services available. There are no active labor market policies that are very appropriate, relevant for that group of people. And at that moment, the issue becomes more adjustments, in the institutional structure, offering of the programs, and etc. But then the question becomes, and this is going to come back to Martina, is that in cases where such systems are not present, does the study cover any country cases where these linkages are at very nascent stages, or they started from nascent and still in process? And how can this be achieved, especially using interoperability as an entry point, where in some developing countries, there are no PES. There are social registries with some coverage. Can they be leveraged to act as an entry point to coordinate delivery of also labor market services programs? So, that's one question maybe specific to Martina. And the second question is maybe to Dr. Lee, because we are talking about a very, very, integrated system, which he already presented took almost about 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. But it would be very helpful to hear a bit more on the details on the main impetus behind this integration, right? So, and what were the success factors? Did it come from, we have a very fragmented system, we need to bring it together? Was it an administrative efficiency point of view? Was it that a very high-level leadership decided this is how it needs to happen? And then the digital tools provided an entry point. So it would be very helpful to hear on this, but I wanted to hear a little bit more, and especially coming back to the point of the client-centered design, the concept that citizen provides their data once to the government, and the government agencies then pull this data as needed, is gaining more traction. And I think Korea is already doing that. That's definitely for its the welfare and employment system, and seems like there's a vision for that integration to happen even more. So what are some of the challenges that you see moving forward? Sorry, a lot of questions, but this is a very interesting topic and dear to my heart. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Aline. And indeed, very, very relevant question. I can see how much we have still to learn from each other. And with no further, because we also have questions filling up the Q&A box, I would like, Thomas Byrne, to ask you whether you would like also to share some of your reflection, also question, and then we can all discuss together and try to bring some of the answers to all these questions. Thomas, the floor is you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Celine. And thank you very much for Martina and Dr. Lee for their excellent presentations. I don't know about everyone else, but the slides gave me a very clear picture of both the opportunities and the challenges in linking social protection and employment systems. And what struck me most was that while technology was crucial, the real lessons are often about governance, institutions, and people. From a digital standards perspective, I often say the software is the easy part. If you don't study computer science, it seems hard, but actually building APIs, setting up data exchanges, even deploying, systems, these are all solvable and in many ways solved problems. What is much harder is aligning business processes across ministries, clarifying responsibilities, and making staff on both the social protection and employment side are prepared for change. And I think we saw that a bit in the presentation on the Turkey case, where referrals from social assistance into PES were possible through the integrated social assistance system, but employment offices often struggled with the influx of new clients with different needs. And the digital referral worked, but the institutions were stretched. And this underlines a crucial point that digital integration doesn't create capacity, it often tests it. So I guess a question I'll ask to Martina or link to that is, when you're reviewing cases like Turkey, what did you see was the most important institutional enablers that allowed countries to actually make these linkages work in practice? And Dr. Lee, turning to Korea, I think that example illustrated a different point. The only once principle allows citizens to provide information once and then have it securely reused across programs. And at a first glance, this looks like a great technical solution, but I suspect, and what I'm seeing from the side is that really makes it possible is the governance, the agreements across ministries, integration for KEIS and Work 24, and the safeguards that build citizens' trust. So I guess from your, and it's great because interoperability should serve the citizen, not serve the system. And Dr. Lee, I guess I would ask from your perspective, what was the single most important driver of Korea's success? Was it leadership, technology, or the capacity of institutions to adapt? And then my final reflection before I hand back is that digital is the enabler, but not the solution on its own. And that technology can be put in place quickly, but building trust, aligning institutions and making processes work is a long-term challenge. So if we can make that balance in mind, and the DCI is doing work to enable one part of it, we should be able to deliver better services. But I hope Martina and Dr. Lee, those questions would be useful. Over.
No, thank you very much, Thomas. Thanks a lot for this very good question. Actually, they also meet some of the interrogation we have in the Q&A. So we'll give Martina and Dr. Lee an opportunity to respond. And I would like to close this panel of discussion with your intervention, Marcelo, please. And then we will open for the Q&A. Thank you, Marcelo.
Sure. Thank you, Celine, and thank you very much for the presentations. They were very interesting. I particularly enjoyed how Martina presented the entry points of potential interoperability for both PES and social protection institutions. That was a really added value for me. And of course, the example of South Korea, it is quite impressive. You know, the extent to which both systems are more than only social protection and public employment services. It goes beyond that in terms of integration. You even mentioned banks. So I guess that most of my comments were already addressed by my peer discussants, but I then will just focus in two specific areas. The first one is on the maturity of institutions needed. That was mentioned by Martina. Sometimes when policymakers decide to take the first steps towards interoperability, and oftentimes through or with the support of digital platforms, they do not necessarily consider the level of maturity and readiness of these institutions to actually cooperate or even exchange information, not to mention collaborate or integrate. So I guess that my question is, should countries first must develop, in the case of public employment services, their capacity so that they can be interoperable with other type of institutions, or interoperability can be a means that can actually trigger PES maturity? And then the second question is in terms of governance. I know that in countries where they have very highly developed digital systems, such as Estonia, citizens own their information. They have an ID number from the moment they're born, and then that number follows them throughout their lives. So I was wondering whether in the case of Korea and in other cases that you may know of, citizens own their own information, or when interoperability is integrated at the level as it is in Korea, does it actually belong to the citizens, or is it kind of belonging to the institutions? I guess I'll stop there because I'm really interested in knowing what the public and others have to say. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Marcelo. Thanks a lot. So a lot of questions to you, Martina and Dr. Lee. Maybe we can start answering the question we received from our discussant. And in any case, they also converge towards some of the questions we have in the Q&A. For instance, I mean, what are the main challenges? What are the elements of success? If you have countries where exactly it has happened and it has happened successfully, do you have number of those countries? So I give you back the floor. Maybe, Dr. Lee, if you don't mind, we start in the same order with Martina, and then you can complement also with your own experience. Thank you. So Martina, if you want to start answering to this first question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments and your questions. Some of them are quite tricky to answer, but I will do my best to do so. So I would start with the questions from Thomas. That was what were the most important enablers in the countries that I have studied so far? So I think that became clear in my presentation as well as in Dr. Lee's presentation, that first of all, you need to have accessible services for clients by public employment services. So, I mean, thinking from a social protection perspective, because I'm mostly a social protection practitioner, if you refer people to public employment services, they need to have a degree of functionality. And the most important thing is that they are geographically accessible, and that they have well-trained staff on the ground that are also able to deal with specifically vulnerable groups, and that are able to also cater their needs and demands. So I think this is a precondition when thinking about these linkages, when thinking about referring people from social assistance to public employment services. This only makes sense if this precondition is already there. Yeah, in the case of Chile, for example, this is the case that I have studied so far the most out of the 3 country cases that are covered in the study. It's also interesting that in Chile, the mandate to coordinate social programs, including those of the public employment service that are targeted at vulnerable groups, lies with the Ministry of Social Development and Families. So this means that this ministry has a certain authority also to, I would not say intervene, but to give recommendations, and also to monitor a little bit the performance of other public services that are responsible for certain social programs, including SENSE, which is the public employment service, and which also provides some specific programs that are targeted at vulnerable groups, as the examples which I mentioned, the youth employment subsidy and employment subsidies for women. And I think maybe one point to add here is that in many countries, not in all countries, but in many countries, you also see that social protection and labor policies are under one umbrella, under one ministry. And this is, of course, even though these are often different directorates and so on, but if there is, let's say, a strong drive from the minister itself, it's often also helpful to better align and combine these 2, I would say, different policy areas, and also to strengthen the linkages. That's more from a policy perspective. I'm not talking so much on interoperability in this regard. I'm not sure if that is enough for this question. Then I would move to Eileen's question. So your question was if there is no, let's say, customer service available from public employment services, and if they are not present, if you could use interoperability as or if there are some evidence that interoperability is also used as an entry point. Here I have to say that the problem to answer this question at the moment for me is that the study is mostly focusing on country cases where these, let's say, these collaborations have been successful to a certain extent. So that's also maybe the way how we chose the country examples that are going to be covered in the study was very much on where does this already work? So where is already a clear policy objective? Where is there already some kind of digital, let's say, systems in place that are interoperable and so on? So for me, at the moment, it's very hard to answer these questions that I also saw in the chat already, to say where did it not work, or how do you overcome these bottlenecks in terms of public employment services not being available, not being fully functional, and so on. I think that's everything I can say here. And then maybe for the question for Marcelo, I would, I don't know, could you maybe repeat the question, because I was somehow not fully getting it.
Shall I, Celine, or
Yes, please,
Yeah.
Marcelo, if you can quickly sum up the question, and if I may ask you to come a bit closer to the mic, because we had a bit of difficulties to
Marcelo,
you.
it's
Thank
hard
you.
to understand your voice because so that why don't you type and then we take the question.
Exactly.
I
And
think
while
no
Mar
problem.
yeah, thank you, Dr.
Much
Lee, for
faster.
this suggestion. And while Marcelo is typing, maybe Dr. Lee, we can give you the floor to answer to some of these questions, and also maybe where we also had this consideration how this can work in countries where we started with when we start with high informality. You have a lot of experience, a long history in South Korea. So maybe also this question was at some point when the system started considered, and if there's any experience you would like to share. And yeah, I let you answer to that, I think, and then I will take back the floor.
Thank you, Irene, Thomas, and Marcelo for a wonderful comment and also great question. The leadership behind is the one person was there. He's from social protection sector. So it was amazing, not from employment side. He's a professor at the Seoul National University for Social Welfare Service. And he studied from Swedish Uppsala University, and then he was a very close advisory for the president of Korea, and it was his idea, to provide the better success, better services for those people who, dwelled in outside of social protection system should be, provided by more actively engaged service from employment services. So he created ideas employment welfare plus. So one leader with the innovation idea is very critical for the Korean cases. And the second question was there was some costs, and it happened exactly a week before. After I turn in my presentation file, so I could not put into the presentation file. The National Information Resource Service Center has all the servers from all the ministry except Ministry of Labor, our services, or social protection side. Otherwise, all small services are placed in one places, one government server center. And then there was a fire. Okay. And now for a week, 700 services from all ministry is shut down. And some of the system burnt down, so it takes 4 weeks to recover. For example, the labor inspection service from Ministry of Labor burnt down. So now the labor inspectors in the labor office are working with pen and pencil, pen and papers, right? We just exactly go back 30 years. And then year 2023, Social Security Information Service put all their system into one, just like Employment 24. Okay, that's kind of a fashion in Korea now. Government put every system into one big server, and then the launching day, the services collapsed down because they could not find even which is because they put 300 different services in one system. Before it operated around 10 different servers, 10 different systems, now put it in one basket. And then there's some collision. They could not find it for a month. And then what happened? Those people, the most vulnerable people, dependent on the social assistance program, doesn't get paid. There was no money on the table. It was a real disaster. And we have those experience. So interoperability is very important to figure out for better success for Epicent, but there is also cost. You have to be very careful when you put these, technically you have enough capacity, solutions is also your technical level of engineering is also very important to making these interoperabilities. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dr. Lee, and thank you very much for sharing this real life experience that you had. It's a good wealth of knowledge indeed. And there was so now I'm opening to the question in the Q&A. There was a question for you, Dr. Lee. Given the rapid rise of the private sector platform and training providers, how do you see the balance between those private providers and the link with the public institution? And do you have any experience from Korea or maybe other country that you know where this interoperability also has worked with the private institution, private providers of services? Thank you.
Provider is working with a contract basis. We also using a lot of contract out services for private provider. The whole vocational training completely privatized, but government funded. But we have a regulation. They're using our system, but they're using national government system, but we have a regulation when contract, we do have contract conditions to perform performance-based services, for vocational training. Otherwise, also employment services privatized, but it's also based on performance-based services. They get paid if they place the people. They get paid if train the person and successfully employed. So those two, so how do you design this contract is key to managing whole outside private providers, and also regulation is important. And then we open our system using our system, but at the same time we need to protect some of the individual information. So there is a different level of the accessibility, different level of the authority to connect the data. So some of the private organization could use only very small sector of the data, and then all data is followed which services they look up and which data they was searching. So individual data protection is really key issues, but somehow we have technology to protect that. And so basically we are working together in one system in a harmonized way.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Lee, for this answer based on the experience of Korea. I continue going through the question. I think there was one interesting for you also, Martina. You've probably seen it as well in the chat. Where one of us was asking if you have numbers, for instance, how many countries are starting implementing, of course, at different stage of implementation, this integration and interoperability. And if you also have some experiences of countries where they have put in place key performance indicators to monitor the efficiency of this integration. You were giving the example of Turkey. If you came across some numbers also of persons who have benefited from social assistance, but also this additional support, employment services support, if through your review of countries you came across numbers. Thank you, Martina.
Okay, thank you. So that's a long question. I can also afterwards answer the question in the chat that Marcelo put there now. Yeah, so let me check the question again. That was the first one, right? For the one from Vincent that you, yeah. Okay, so again, let's say it like that. When looking at the study, we also took this approach to see where are things working and how are they working. So that's the main, let's say, focus of the study, definitely to the country cases that have been chosen and that are currently being analyzed are country cases where the things are more or less working or more or less in place. So the question of how many countries are already linking actively and also delivering results, it's very difficult to answer in numbers, but from the analysis that we have that I have done it was really hard to identify country cases, especially because at first we wanted to have like was agreed that we have a country case from a lower middle income country, from a higher middle income country, and maybe from a high income country. In the end, as you have seen now, we only have high income countries and higher middle income countries in the country cases, because it was impossible to find any country case, even lower middle income country, where first of all, let's say there is kind of a collaboration between these two systems, or let's say between social protection administrations on the one hand and public employment services on the other hand. And where there is, it's often not, let's say, obviously, or no, there is no evidence that this is supported by digital interoperability, which was one of the, let's say, assessment criteria that we wanted to apply for these country cases. I came across a few country examples where, let's say, lower middle income countries where this coordination between social protection administrations and public employment services is evolving. One of the country cases is Cambodia, where I think, around 1 or 2 years ago, there was a program or initiated under the family package, which is basically a package of different social assistance schemes. And there is the so-called TVET 1.500 pro scheme, let's say it like that, that is basically providing beneficiaries of social assistance schemes with short-term TVET programs or TVET trainings to facilitate them to enter the formal labor market more easily. And here there is also a cooperation between, of course, the social assistance administration, the TVET institutions, but also the National Employment Agency is to a certain extent involved in this cooperation, with the task also to then, after this training, help people being referred to the labor market, to find a job, to also provide some soft skills that they might need to enter the formal labor market. So that's one example of a lower middle income country, but I haven't found any evidence that this is somehow supported by digital interoperability. Another example would be, for example, Jordan, which is also now again a lower middle income country to my knowledge, and I mentioned that as well. So they have this quota for the NAF beneficiaries for the employment subsidy. I'm not really sure how they are monitoring it, but it seems that it's just like batch transfers that they are doing, and there is no real interoperability between systems in this case. For Turkey, I was not able now to look into the numbers, but I think this is something that has been presented in the webinar in June. So I would just recommend to listen in or to look at the presentation slides. And I'm going to look at this also when coming up with the country case study and when writing this up. And for the KPIs, I cannot say anything at the moment, but it's good to raise this because it's also a good question to be asked during the key informant interviews that I'm also going to conduct over the next weeks to finalize the country case studies, if there are any KPIs to measure the success of these systems. Yeah, that's it. And then I'm not sure if you want me to answer Marcelo's question still. I lost it again, so it was somewhere in the chat, but now I cannot see it anymore.
Maybe I can read it to you. Yeah, so the presentation highlighted that PES maturity is often a limiting factor for interoperability. Many PES have narrow mandates, limited staff capacity, or fragmented delivery chains. If that is the baseline, should countries first invest in strengthening PES capacity? Or can a continuum towards interoperability with social protection institutions actually help build that maturity?
Okay, I think that's also something that is going to be explored further when digging further into the country cases. Basically, I would say from the analysis that I did so far is that a certain level of maturity of public employment services would need to be key to establish such collaborations. And when it comes to digital interoperability, of course, that both information systems are kind of functional on its own before establishing interoperability. I think there is a certain trend now as the social protection system is getting more and more, let's say, digitalized, but also the same let's say, trend can be seen in public employment services that as we have this data now available, people might start to think how to better connect it and how to also formulate some common objectives, how to do some joint monitoring and evaluation and so on. So I think this is something that is being seen, but where you also need to be very careful because the basics have to be there before you start really connecting the systems. But of course, it could be, let's say, for some, let's say, public employment services, like in the case of Turkey, it would be interesting to see if this case that was mentioned, I think, by Thomas, led to also, let's say, improving the performance of the public employment services, because first they were not really able to cater the people that were referred to the ISKU. And I think this problem seems to have been solved somehow, and it would be interesting, and that's what I'm going to do in the country case studies, also to dig into how this problem has been solved and how this might have been helping to also, let's say, further develop the capacities of public employment services, also to cater this very, let's say, specific group of social assistance beneficiaries that are able to participate in the labor market. Okay, I think that's it from my side at the moment.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot, Martina. And we still have one more question in the Q&A, but I would like to rebound on one example you're starting presenting about Cambodia. And indeed, the government launched 2 years ago the 1.5 million program, they call it with this short title, which aims at providing training and active labor market programs and supports to beneficiaries of so far the ID poor, so looking at the beneficiaries of social assistance in rural areas and in particular youth in rural areas. I think what is interesting to also respond to the question we have in the chat, how we can also tap into the potential of the public employment services. Cambodia has this ambition to strengthen their public employment services and active labor market policy to also adapt the services and reach out to the beneficiaries of social assistance, including in those rural areas, by offering also employment opportunities that are maybe in more urban setting and formal employment opportunities, including for youth. So I think a key message we can take from all these different experiences, and Turkey as well, South Korea, is indeed there's a potential that may not be fully realized of the public employment services, and the need to extend and strengthen those services to also address the need of the social assistance recipient or those who are not receiving any social protection benefits, and to help them to transition to formal employment and formal activities. There's one last question, I think for you, Martina. Yes, for you, Martina. If you could give some, coming across, when you review these countries, if you came across about a very specific example of what type of governance arrangement that are typically in place to help the social protection and PACE manage better, do you think that we should think about establishing shared committees? Would that be a good practice? What is the experience that you have collected, and maybe what is your view on, and maybe Dr. Lee, if you would like, and that will be our last question for the webinar. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks for this question. So about governance arrangements, I can give again, the example of Chile, which I already studied in depth. So in Chile, as I already mentioned, the Ministry of Social Development has this mandate to oversee all social programs, including those, let's say, active labor market programs that are targeted at the poor population. So I think that's one thing. I mean, that's very specific for Chile. You can maybe see it in some other countries as well, to have a very strong role of the Ministry of Social Development to guide this and to also, let's say, give some advisory also to other public services, including the public employment services, how to design and how to implement such systems to better tailor it to the needs of poor and vulnerable populations. Also in the case of Chile, there is both. So there is like a cooperation at the policy level between the Ministry of Social Development and the census. So there is a cooperation at this policy level to provide this advice, to monitor their performance and so on. And there is at the same time, and also linked to that, in a cooperation and also regular exchange between the digital service providers of both let's say, institutions, the ministry, with the division that is responsible for the Registro Social de Hogares and the Registro de Información Social, and also at the census side to have the digital guys sitting together and see how, let's say, the policy issues that are being there are then basically solved. I think that's a good way how to solve this. And I think that's also something that we said again and again during this presentation, that it's not only about interoperability, but it's also about the governance, and this has to go hand in hand. And the various levels have to speak to each other, but there has also to be an interconnection between that. What else? So maybe, yeah, of course, what I've seen a lot is regular coordination meetings, in some cases ad hoc. So in some cases, especially when it comes to interoperability, it was more to say, okay, now we came across some issues in data exchange. We see that the API is not working, or the data requests are increasing and we do not know why. And this is not based on our, let's say, often memorandum of understanding or agreement. Then the digital guys come together to see how these things can be solved and how these arrangements and agreements can be updated. From the policy side, it's often, more regular meetings, joint M&E mechanisms, and so on. So that's what I've seen in these 3 country cases that I started to study. I think that's not all, but that's what I have in my mind now from the research. Yeah.
No, thanks a
Was
lot,
there anything
Martina.
else? I think there were more questions that I forgot now. I don't know if there's anything I didn't address.
No, thanks a lot, Martina. I think that was quite a comprehensive answer, and we're really looking forward to reading the study when it will come out. About all the questions we receive, also, I don't know if the 3 discussants, Eileen, Thomas, Marcelo, you would have any reaction, any thoughts that you would like to share, or any final thought before we also give the floor to our 2 presenters for a final thought. But the floor is you, Eileen, Thomas, and Marcelo, if you would like to add to the responses to the questions.
Yeah, I will come in just to say, first of all, this is incredible discussion. Thank you very much for facilitating it. And it shows, I think, the breadth of discussions that we're having and questions show the need for a conversation and standards on this. I think one of the key things that came up and Vincent raised was, how do we measure success? We don't have consistent global metrics on how many referrals lead to jobs or how many social protection recipients are active through PES. But the first step is to actually define those standards and those terms, and then work on a monitoring and evaluation framework. But I think that was a key takeaway from there, is also not just focusing on the process of interoperability, but focusing on the outcomes of interoperability and the why are we doing this out of there. So that was my final reflection.
No, thanks, Thomas. Thanks. I see Aline and also maybe Dr. Lee and Marcelo as well. So in the order, if you don't mind, Eileen, Marcelo, and then Dr. Lee, I will also give you the floor for a final comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine, and thank you to everyone for the excellent questions and the discussion. I fully agree with Thomas that basically we have so many open questions, and this shows the interest, right? Because so my final reflection is very similar to Tomas, but I'm going to bring in a little bit more of the policy aspect, right? And the institutional structure aspect. I think we need to recognize that right now there's a continuum of, how these linkages exist and how they function. And that can go from one end of fully integrated systems like the United Kingdom, Job Center Plus, to, Ireland, and etc., where we are, and the Koreans, as well as on the others where we are talking about very fragmented systems where there are no linkages, and then there are no institutional structures in place currently. There's no PES, there's no organized labor market system delivery, and etc., and even not labor market, active labor market programs, in which case we see, for instance, economic inclusion programs on top of safety nets, social protection programs, right? So there is that continuum that we have to recognize. That's one thing I wanted to say. And also recognize that technology, and especially interoperability, is a huge entry point, but it is a tool, right? Without the policy, institutional coordination, and leadership, and the soft factors like human capacity, like human resources capacity, then it's not going to happen. It's going to be very hard to get there. And we have we have documented very extensively the UK experience that touched upon these hard and soft factors. And even in a case like UK, the need to develop, for instance, counselors that, a cadre of counselors that they didn't have, they needed to train them. And they couldn't have trained them within 6 months. They needed a few years to get there. So I just want to bring those out so that we know that this is not going to happen overnight, even with the technology. And there are other factors at play. And they're identified, but they will very much differ on what are the existing structures on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aline, for insisting on this key message that where on this work is about interoperability is first to deliver effective policy to the service of the needs of the people. I think it's a very key takeaway we have from this discussion. Marcelo, your final thought?
Sure, thank you, Selena. I hope you can hear me better now. One of the key messages, I think, is that interoperability is not an objective, it's a means. And I think that some countries, in particular developing countries, should not necessarily look at full interoperability. There are different stages along the continuum, from exchange of information to coordination, cooperation, collaboration, that could be better adapted to each country situation, in particular where they have very limited institutional capacity and resources. So I think this is something that we should, as we provide technical assistance and capacity building, this is a message that should clearly come through to policymakers in the countries where we operate. Thank you.
And thanks, Marcelo. Dr. Lee.
Discussion, and I thought many things from these events, and it also influenced to me a lot of I just take away from all of your comments and your presentation. And I think a client is the center of interoperability. Client is one. We many different organizations, many different government provide different services, but our client is one person. The person may need some of the social welfare side services, maybe training, maybe employment services. The person demand is different by person. So we need to approach with the holistic ideas, with the case management methodology, so that interoperability is required to service better for that person in that concept. And I realize this talk, interoperability, is critical to better service for our clients, whether it's from social protection side or job side. It doesn't matter. It depends on the needs from the persons. We need a better understanding of our whole services to provide better services for people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lee, for this very wise last recommendation. I think it's very important to put the client at the center. And I don't know, Martina, if there's anything else or if you had your last point during your last intervention.
I think there's not so much to add. I can only underline what has been said by the other speakers. So I think one of the important messages I would say is definitely that technology and digital interoperability is a tool and not an end in itself. I think that was also one of the lessons learned at the moment over the course of conducting this study, because of course, first, as it is under the umbrella of the Digital Convergence Initiative, I would say that I started also together with the ILO colleagues supporting this study to very much look into these interoperability issues. And then we realized somehow that we really need to take a step back and also look at the broader collaboration issues and the purposes before digging into, let's say, the nitty-gritty things of interoperability and how could this work. So this is basically, this message is totally underlined by the experience over the research process. When it comes to, let's say, the feasibility of these collaborations, I would say, even though one has to be careful, I see some potential now under this economic inclusion agenda that you see in many countries to enhance very carefully this collaboration between social protection administrations and public employment services where they are available and where they have a certain functionality already. Yeah, I think that's it. I only have one last request, maybe to the participants of the webinar. I have the feeling that this study, this let's say area is kind of understudied. Therefore, I could not really rely on many studies, research reports, and so on over the course of the study now. So if anyone has more, let's say, examples, practical examples, country examples, maybe also from lower middle income countries where this collaboration is already happening with or without digital interoperability, it would be great if you could share it with us. And also if you identify more, let's say, use cases for interoperability than the ones that are outlined in the presentation on this one slide, it would also be great if you could share your experiences. So I would just like to take this opportunity also to get some inputs for the study to make sure that we are not missing out anything. Yeah, that's it. And thank you very much.
Yeah, now thanks, Martina, and thanks also for debating me on and indeed asking all countries to share your experiences. We're all in this learning journey together. We realized really the potential of better coordinating, and we talked about it first, the policy level, but also the systems and the data through interoperability with this broader objective of really facilitating the transition from social assistance benefits to more decent and formal jobs. And this is where the public employment services can also play a very important role to support those populations often difficult to reach out. And we learn from South Korea that there are positive experiences about that. Now, it was a very rich discussion. Thank you very much. Maybe one small announcement of my side. If you enjoyed this discussion as much as we did, the next interoperability in action webinar will take place on the 6th of November, where we will dive a bit more into the employment systems and employment services. So you're pleased to join through the same process of registration via the socialprotection.org. Yeah. And as Martina and myself, we invite you to continue sharing your experiences. You can do it either through the website of the Digital Convergence Initiative, but also reaching out directly to us. All here, we are part of this initiative, and we will be happy to continue this discussion. And here are the further link to continue sharing your experiences, being aware of the webinar topics, and also the different publication that the DCI, Digital Convergence Initiative, will continue releasing as we together continue this learning journey towards understanding better how we can coordinate and link the different policy areas, including through the potential of interoperability. Thank you very much. If there's no other reaction, really thank you to our presenters. Thank you to our discussant. Very, very interesting experiences. Really great to have been part and invited to moderate this webinar. Always learning a lot, and I think we all leave this almost 2 hours with good positive energy that there's still a lot to do, but we learn from country that it is possible, and always better to start now and not wait for having the system fully mature to be able to continue serving people who really need these services. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a very excellent day, and see you soon for the next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Marcelo, bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.